And one of the things that Western religion did was to attack African spirituality, so that you lost your connection to God, because in many African communities, the connection between man and God was a direct thing, and you had your ancestors interceding for you, which they said was unchristian, but yet when you are Christian, you pray to the God of Abraham, Moses, and Joseph, who are their ancestors, and they tell us we must not mention our ancestors when we are praying. So it is true that one of the things that attacks spirituality and creates a distance between us and God is organized religion, which we now know by dint of history, and even as we observe today, has some of the most corrupt practices, some of the most pernicious practices against men. We have seen cultic religions which have come where individuals become rich at the expense of their congregants. Religion is the thief of spirituality. You know, when you look at religion, specifically spirituality rather than religion, God, in his own divine way, having created man, ensured that man's environment, wherever he or she was, whether he's in Europe or America or in the Middle East, there is a sense in which your connection with him, to mean God, was mediated through many ways, including nature. And you look at every tradition, even if you choose to look at the books which are written, many African spirituality is not rendered in written books which were destroyed. But look at the Christian Bible and the Old Testament, which is fundamentally the Jewish Torah. You can see how they were praying to their God, how they went to the mountains, how they had prophets such as Elijah saying that it will not rain, and then it did not. What is the difference between Elijah and some of our seers amongst the Agikuyu of Kenya, or amongst the Zulu of South Africa, or amongst the Luo then of Sudan, or amongst the Yoruba, or amongst the Igbo, or amongst the Nama in what is present-day Namibia, or amongst the Temne, or amongst the Wolof, or amongst the Dogon in Mali? There is no difference. And those who want to destroy and confuse you, when they come and attack you, the first thing they do is to attack your God, attack your spirituality, because once there is a spiritual disconnect between you and your God, then you can be dominated, and then you lose everything. Look at in the area of pharmaceuticals. We had healers in African land. We now know that brain surgery was undertaken in the continent of Africa. We now know that there were cesarean births in the continent of Africa. But when we were disrupted, we lost all that, and we now think that in order to be a doctor, you must be trained in the tradition of the Western world. But if you look at other civilizations which have borrowed and which have survived and which retained their mode of doing things, they continued with their way of doing. Go to China. You still talk about Chinese medicine because they did not lose. And that has not prevented them from embracing what is good from other civilizations. Go to India, Ayurveda, and you find that the Indians have continued with that particular tradition. But when you come to Africa, when we have our herbalists, because we are mentally confused, courtesy of miseducation and spiritual dominance, when we have people who are healers in our society, we condemn them as witch doctors. So it is the battle against the impact of slavery and colonization combined is a battle of unlearning many negative things which were pumped into our minds so that we could become robots. And robots we have become in many ways because we do things simply because certain information was pumped in our heads. We have been taught consistently to hate ourselves and to love the things that belong to others. So when we have conversations about religion and about the impact of slavery, it is a conversation which is reminding us that we should go back to ourselves. There is a beautiful saying in the Kiswahili saying, or in the Kiswahili language called mwachamila ni mtumwa. If you abandon your culture and tradition, you become a slave. And that is exactly what happened to us. We abandoned our culture and tradition and way of doing things. And even when we deny it, we are still slaves mentally.